When I was 14 years old, I thought my career was over. I've been training as an opera singer for as long as I can remember. I started music lessons at the age of 4, and for as long as I can remember, singing has not just been something I love, it's something I want to do with my life. By 14, my opportunities in Jersey had been growing, and also so had my respect within the musical community. Then suddenly, my voice changed. Almost overnight, my clear, reliable tone became breathy, uneven, and unfamiliar. At first, only I noticed, but soon voice cracks appeared, and notes I used to rely on became unreliable. I went to people for answers, and they said, your voice is tired, and you need to vocally rest, but with demands and performances growing by the day, rest was not really in my busy schedule. And so I pushed and manipulated my voice to try and recreate something that used to come naturally to me. Now, to an audience, it sounded lovely, but I knew that it wasn't authentic. And that to me was a big thing because so much of my performing is the vulnerability a singer has to an audience. And I felt that because this wasn't my true voice, that kind of got taken away. But I think the most frightening thing for me is not knowing why this was happening. And so today I would like to talk to you about how hormones affect the female voice during adolescence. Because a misunderstanding about this can cause vocal damage that lasts into adulthood. A big misconception about voices breaking is that it only happens to males. But in reality, girls' voices break too, but just more subtly, but need just the same amount of care. The main hormones that affect a female in adolescence are estrogen, progesterone, growth hormone, and I'm also going to talk about cortisol. Hormones come from the endocrine system, as an overview. And the voice comes from the vocal tract, which uses 3 main components of resonance, sound generation, and articulation. The first hormone I would like to talk to you about is estrogen. This is an extremely dominant hormone in female adolescents, and it causes the vocal cords to lengthen and widen. Your vocal cords, when working normally together before this break, they would be lying comfortably together like this, and sound would go through them, sounding like, ooh, like it goes straight through without any hesitation. But if one vocal cord grows at a different rate to the other, which can happen with the fluctuating estrogen, one vocal cord may jut out at a position which means that there are gaps between these vocal cords. And so when you make a sound, air can escape with this sound. Now, I over-exaggerated it a little bit for the point, but I think you can get the idea. And this sound can be very sought after in genres such as pop music, where it's emotional and quiet. But for a classical singer, this was devastating, as it is not the required sound. And I also think it's a lot of the lack of control that you suddenly have, as the breathiness in the voice is something that can be very easily controlled when you are not going through this stage. But suddenly that control is taken away. And if you've spent your whole life trying to cultivate this control over a part of you, that can be very scary. The next hormone I will talk to you about is progesterone. Progesterone rises as the menstrual cycle becomes established, and this removes mucus from your throat, causing dryness and mild inflammation. This can also reduce your vocal resilience and endurance. And this to me was very heartbreaking because I would go from performing for 1.5 hours or practicing in my room for 2 hours to not being able to sing for 20 minutes without feeling vocally tired. And that is something I personally really should have listened to more, is that my voice and my body was telling me to stop, and I needed to stop. The next hormone I will talk to you about is growth hormone. As your whole body grows, so does your resonating area. Now, this is probably the best hormone for your voice during this stage because it makes your voice more mature and richer. But it can happen suddenly and does take some getting used to, so can throw a singer off to begin with. Then there is cortisol, or stress hormone. As you may be aware, a lot of teenagers struggle with this hormone, but did you know that it can also affect your voice? Because if you are stressed, your whole upper body can tense, and your laryngeal passages and neck can also tense, meaning that sound is strained and equally tense. As if you are a singer, you know that everything should be really relaxed, up here especially. And so it is important to regulate breathing and use meditative methods to reduce this cortisol. So, as you can see, there are lots of hormones that affect the female voice during adolescence that get overlooked. And it may confuse many young singers, thinking, why is my voice changing? What is happening? Because there is not very much awareness that female voices change as well. I myself sung through the change of my voice, and I managed to maintain my range and come out the other end with a deep, rich voice that I am proud of today. But I didn't have this information, and so lowered my self-confidence a lot during this stage. And I think it is also really important to be aware that singing during this stage can be dangerous if you strain it too much, because it can create lasting damage. And if I was to give advice to young singers going through this stage, it would be to do sing through this stage, because, as my singing teacher would say, not singing through this stage would be like lying in bed for a week and then trying to run a marathon, because a voice is like any other muscle and needs exercising. But just be gentle and use semi-occluded vocal tract exercises like sirens, like or other kind of vowels that close the mouth and relieve pressure from your vocal cords. But also try to expand your range in this time, and don't keep yourself into a voice type, because coming out the other side, you will have expectations to yourself that limit yourself to a certain register of your voice. And so, I really hope that I have helped someone out here by explaining how hormones affect the female voice during adolescence, and that I've given someone some kind of advice that I needed at a young age to help me through this stage, by knowing that it is temporary, and when you come out of the other side, you will have a voice you are really proud of. Not only male voices change, and female voices need equal care. Thank you for listening.